Finding Vanessa by Insomnia Mnemonic. I must confess, this process hasn't exactly been easy for me. Wading through the memories of what happened feels like digging through the rubble of your home after a tornado. You look for anything worth salvaging and try to ignore the rest. Those 3 days feel like an exposed nerve in my mind. The wounds, both physical and mental, are still fresh. But this is a process. And my shrink says the best way of heal is by facing the trauma head on. So I forced myself to remember one more time to put it all on paper. Even the parts that don't make any sense. Well, let's get on with it. This whole thing began a couple of months ago with a phone call to my office. I run a small operation out of New Orleans. Meaning, I answer the phone when I'm not in the field. I'm one of dozens of private investigators in the city specializing in infidelity cases. Yeah, I know. What a cliche. But it pays the bills and keeps the door open, more or less. Riggins, private investigator. I said into the receiver. Answering the phone is just another part of the job. Usually old clients looking for an update or the occasional confused telemarketer. I don't get many cases from new clients calling me, and despite what you may have seen on television, there's no such thing as a walk-in client at a place like this. If I want a new job, I have to make friendly with one of the divorce lawyers, or grease the palms of a certain madam at a certain establishment who knows exactly when a marriage is coming to an abrupt end. I multitask when I can, which means I was cyber-stalking a cheating asshole husband on Facebook when I answered the phone. This douchebag was using an alias to lure impressionable college girls while his long-suffering, soon-to-be ex-wife was at her parents' house, taking care of the kids. That douchebag was my client, and he paid me good money to dig up dirt on his old lady.
Hey, hi.
The voice on the other line stammered. I stopped what I was doing and gave the phone all my attention. The voice sounded like it belonged to someone young. There was a hint of fear in it. Hi, I answered, trying my best to sound like a calming presence. Something I've had zero patience with. You've reached Eric Riggin.
Eric, hey.
The voice answered. Definitely a kid's voice.
It's me, James.
I scanned my mind for any Jameses I knew, but came up blank. Not surprisingly, I don't know many kids. What can I do for you, James?
It's about Vanessa. I don't know if you heard what happened or not.
Holy shit. Vanessa? That must mean that this is Jamie, I asked. Hey kiddo, I didn't recognize your voice. How long's it been?
It's been a few years.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've never gotten good at the whole uncle thing. After my only brother died, I swore I'd check on his kids from time to time, but there's something about real life. It can't be stopped or paused or put on hold. And sometimes it takes all of your attention. Look, I know I'm a shit uncle like I was a shit brother, but at least I can acknowledge that. So, Vanessa, I asked. It was his older sister. I did some pretty quick math and came up with her current age. 18. Jeez. Has it really been that long? What happened? Is she okay?
I guess you didn't know. I'm not sure who was supposed to tell you.
Oh shit. My mind jumped to all the worst case scenarios. All my years in that city gave my imagination plenty to work with. Just tear the band-aid off, kid. I haven't heard anything, Jamie. Tell me what happened.
She's missing.
Missing? Well, she's 18, she's got rebellious Riggin blood, and if she's anything like the last time I saw her, smart as hell. Missing could mean anything. How long? I asked.
2 weeks.
Who was the last person to see her? Did she say anything? Leave a note? Pack a bag? I was overloading the poor kid.
Can you maybe come here?
Jamie, I have a job. Jeez, did I really just say that?
Oh, okay. I thought I asked. Thanks anyway.
Hey, wait, is your mom around? Can I talk to? He had already hung up the phone. I have a job? What the hell is wrong with me? It took me all of 10 minutes to make up my mind that I was going back to that shitty town I'd sworn never to go back to. The town I grew up swearing I'd find a way to escape. The town where I left my brother's body in the ground. I made arrangements to put my cases I could on hold and sent some select screenshots to my douchebag client's wife from an anonymous email address. Next, I threw a few supplies into the go bag I kept by the door. Some clothes, cash, smokes, my Beretta 9mm, and a bottle of liquid courage. Everything I might need for a week or so away from the comforts of home. I tried calling Jamie a couple more times after I hit the interstate, but his line stayed busy. I tried at least once an hour, but it never went through. You know that sinking feeling in your gut you get when something bad's about to happen and there's nothing you can do to stop it? That's what I had, times 1,000. I drove all night, only stopping for gas and bathroom breaks, eating and smoking in the car. Vanessa was like her father, probably too much for her own good. And that backward small town wasn't kind to smart or different people. I could just imagine how her last few years had gone. That high school where I had to break a few kids' noses just to get left alone at lunch wasn't for the weaker kind. But maybe things had changed since I left. It was afternoon by the time I got to Jamie and Vanessa's home. The kid was pure shock to see me, and the feeling was absolutely reciprocated. He was 15 years old, 2 feet taller than the last time I saw him. In fact, he was taller than me now. And the spitting image of his father. It was downright eerie. I gave him a hug and he invited me in. I hate to say it, but after all this time, I didn't really do the whole catching up thing. Maybe after this blows over, I'll ask him about his friends, grades, and whatever. But at the moment, all I wanted to do was get down to business. Thankfully, he felt the same way. We sat in the cramped, dusty living room of his family's 3-bedroom ranch-style house. It was smaller than I remember. The front and backyards overgrown with weeds. They lived in the part of town that looked like nature was slowly taking it back. I would say they were in the poor part of town, but this place only had poor parts. The fact that they weren't living in a trailer put them in the top tier of luxury. All I could think while I was there was, God, I hate this place. The story fell together like expected. She had been talking about getting out, and even started working a part-time job at the gas station at the edge of town. One night, she went out for a walk, and that was the last anyone saw of her. Jamie was in the living room and saw her leave, but didn't think much about it. She wasn't carrying anything with her. She didn't look strange or high or drunk. She just walked out in jeans and a yellow t-shirt around 10 o'clock, and then, who knows? These were the facts. The cold, unemotional facts. If I was going to help in any way, it would be because I used the facts to do it. Her car was still in the driveway. None of the neighbors heard or saw anything. She didn't have a boyfriend. Her classmates hadn't had any contact. Her cell phone was plugged in on the table next to her bed. Facts. What about the police? The police had their hands full, but they came out and did a report and said they'd be in touch if they found anything. What about Vanessa's mother? Well, that's where things get uncomfortable. My brother's widow had issues for a while. Losing her husband just cranked them up into a higher gear. She was taking meds for it, but there's only so much you can do for someone that doesn't want to be helped. Miranda had delusions and manic episodes. Some days her grasp on reality was more tenuous than others. I remembered sometime after the funeral when Miranda had confided in me that she didn't believe Vanessa was really her daughter. She was convinced that someone had come shortly after she was born and swapped her out with another baby. Her Vanessa, she said, was in outer space right now, and this thing she was being forced to raise was secretly working for them. I may be a shitty uncle, but Miranda was an even shittier mother. And if this were a worst case scenario, she was my suspect number one. But Jamie put that to rest. Miranda was off in another city, in the same hospital she had been for nearly 2 years, getting some much needed help. He and Vanessa had pretty much been living on their own ever since. He was shocked that nobody had told me. "Look," I finally said after I heard everything that there was to tell. "I know you think I can help, but I'm not really qualified to do anything here. I've never worked a missing persons case before in my life." "I can pay you," he said defensively. "I don't care about money. Not right now. I just want to manage expectations. You know the 48-hour rule, right?" He nodded. "Well, you also know that Vanessa is a smart kid. Super smart. She's most likely off with someone blowing off some steam in the city." He nodded again. I don't know if I was being convincing or not. Comforting clients is one thing I could never get right. And right now, I had to treat this like a case. Good. And that's when I said something I never should have said. "I'm going to find her. I promise." I made my first stop at the sheriff's station to check their status of the investigation. The receptionist made me wait in the lobby for about a half an hour, which I spent looking up any news and public information I could find about this place. It's remarkable how much knowledge is out there on the internet. With social media, everybody's an amateur reporter. Between that, the Freedom of Information Act, and the general dilution of the news, there aren't really any secrets left anymore. A veritable treasure trove of information plugging us all into a shared consciousness and giving you whatever you want to know, if you know where to look. And the reason I'm good at my job is I know where to look. That's why I couldn't believe it when my searches came up blank. This town had no footprint online. That's not just strange, that's impossible. With a town this small, in 30 minutes, I should have been able to find out who the mayor was banging. But I couldn't even find an article about Vanessa. "The sheriff will see you now," the receptionist said, snapping me back to reality. His name was Clyde. He was an older guy, bald on top, and a smile that looked forced. His desk was clear, save for a single telephone, and the wall was covered in a giant, dirty American flag. He gestured for me to take a seat. "What can I do you for?" he asked. I explained the situation and asked him for the police reports concerning Vanessa's disappearance. "I'm afraid I can't help you," he said. "Miss Riggins' case is part of an ongoing investigation. Look, I'm not trying to break balls or get in the way here. I just want to help find my niece." The sheriff let out a long sigh and lost his smile, dropping the facade. I knew that look from all the times I had it on my face. There was bad news that he didn't want to deliver. "We have a lead on what happened to your niece. A bunch of kids in town went missing not too long ago, part of some neo-religious bullshit cult. We think maybe Vanessa got caught up in it somehow." "What are you thinking?" "We don't know, but we do have a suspect in custody." "Jesus Christ, you don't think he murdered them, do you?" The sheriff left for a minute and came back with a thick file, dropping it on the desk in front of me. "Everything we have is in there. This case gets pretty fucking strange, and we're still piecing it together. You look like a smart enough guy. I don't have to tell you. Yeah, you didn't give me this file. I don't know anything." "Good, but if you do find something, you'll know as soon as I do." I thanked him and we shook hands before I left. Out in the lobby, I saw a couple of deputies fixing up some coffee. I approached them and asked, "Do you mind if I grab a cup?" "Knock yourself out," said the bigger of the two. He was an intimidating figure, 6'2" and built like a linebacker. The name on his pin said Williams. The smaller one was still taller than me, but lanky and young, probably a fresh recruit. His pin read Franklin. Franklin folded his arms and sized me up. "You some kind of reporter?" he asked. "Not me. I'm Vanessa Riggins' uncle." "Who?" he asked. I gave them my best cold stare. "Vanessa Riggins, the young woman that went missing a couple of weeks ago?" Franklin shrugged and said, "Which one?" Williams hit him in the chest. "Show a little humanity, man." "Sorry, I didn't mean... You know, we got the guy. I mean, he hasn't confessed to anything, but..." "It's fine," I said. "Shitty town, shitty Leos." "Well, what are you planning to do?" asked Williams. "I'm retracing her last days. I guess I'll go check out the gas station where she worked. When I said that, it was like the air was sucked out of the room. I've trained myself to watch reactions to know when people are lying, but any idiot could see Franklin go pale. The hair on his skin stood straight up, and he threw an awkward glance at the older cop. This rookie had no poker face. William tried to play it off cool, but Franklin already blew that. He took a deliberate sip of coffee and tried to sound disinterested. The gas station at the edge of town, huh? You been out there yet? It's been a long time since I lived here, but I remember the stories. There's something weird going on at the edge of town, where the woods are haunted and the creatures wait to eat you. I had no idea that the stories were still persisting. Or maybe not. Maybe this was something else. Not yet. Why? William searched for the words that would make sense, but obviously he couldn't find them. There's been reports of bears activity out in that area. Just be careful, okay? Fuck you. If there's something going on, just tell me. Will do, Deputy. My next stop was the town hall. Something about the glaring lack of information online about a mass disappearance didn't sit right with me. Not surprising, the place was closed when I got there. By the looks of it, the place had been closed for a while. The front lawn was wild with weeds and newspapers were piled up in various stages of decomposition by the front door. Somewhere, a public official is collecting a paycheck to do nothing. I know I've said it before, but seriously, fuck this town. As long as I'm living in a pre-modern hellhole, I thought to myself, I may as well start liking it. My next stop was the Old Faithful for information gathering, the local library. Once again, I was hit with the sensation that this place that I used to see all the time as a child must have gotten smaller since I was last here. But that smell, old books mixed with mildew, was as pungent as ever. I found the librarian taking a nap at her station and asked her if the place kept records of local newspapers. She just laughed at me. Local newspapers? Here? Have you seen this town? Only half the people here are literate, and half of those are on meth. What newspaper do you think these people are buying? I apologized for wasting her time and turned to leave, but then she told me to stop and come back. I think she felt sorry for me. Hey, look, if you need information about this town, there is one guy who can help you. He's been around long enough that he knows everything and everyone. She scribbled a name and address onto a piece of loose-leaf paper and gave it to me. When you get here, ask for Roger. He'll be able to help you. Here I was, on my 5th stop today, with exactly jack and shit to show for it. I wasn't any closer to figuring out what happened to Vanessa. If anything, I felt like I was further away, being pulled into this rabbit hole of bullshit and weirdness. Was it even worth going to check out this Roger guy? I took a second to center myself and think about it. Facts. Those are all I need right now. Facts. At this moment, I don't have what I need. Why not see what Roger knows? I plugged the address into my GPS and laughed to myself when I saw where I was going. My old high school building was just as horrible and broken down as it had been when I left, but nothing a few coats of paint wouldn't cover. I wasn't sure what I was doing when I parked the car and went inside, but that state of blindly fumbling along hoping for a clue was turning into the theme of this trip. The school was small and dimly lit, and I could hear the buzz of the lights on the ceiling just a few inches above my head. I felt like a giant in here, and I couldn't believe children crammed themselves into this building. Here I was, all by myself, feeling claustrophobic. Claustrophobic and a little dizzy. Can I help you? Or at least, I thought I was by myself. I noticed a short guy in jeans and an AC/DC t-shirt holding a mop looking at me from inside of one of the classrooms. Yeah, I said. You work here? Nobody's supposed to be here. School's closed. I'm looking for Roger. The guy gently set his mop down and pulled out a pair of glasses, putting them on before responding. Are you a friend of his? Not exactly. I'm looking for my niece. She went missing. And you think Roger had something to do with it? Are you Roger? No, I wish. Well, if you don't mind pointing me in the right direction. Roger's in his office. I'll show you how to get there. Great. The janitor walked slowly with a hunch, hands in his pockets, eyes on the ground. He didn't say anything as he led me down the hallway, around a corner, and up to a closed door when he finally broke the silence. This is Roger's office. I thanked him and waited for him to leave, but he gently knocked on the door. Hey Roger, this guy's out here. He wants to see you. Somewhere inside I heard a muffled, Go away. Come on, Roger, open up. He gave me an awkward smile and a shrug. A few seconds passed before the janitor let out a long sigh and grabbed the doorknob, opening it and stepped inside. I guess if I had to pick the exact moment where my case went from weird to batshit insane, this would be the one. The room wasn't a room at all. It was just a simple, dirty supply closet, barely big enough for the janitor to fit inside, with shelves on every wall lined with cleaning supplies and boxes. The janitor flicked on the lights and bent down to the ground and pulled up an old wooden crate into the center of the floor. Roger, are you here? Didn't you hear what I said? He opened the crate and... Jesus Christ. I can't even believe I'm writing this. He pulled Roger out of a box. He turned and faced me holding Roger in his arms. Roger was an old-fashioned wooden ventriloquist dummy with a black suit painted on. The eyes popped open and looked at me. Then his head spun around to look at the janitor, then back to me. The dummy yawned and stretched, and went through the show of waking up before finally speaking. Who the hell is this guy? Didn't you see the sign on my door that said do not disturb? Roger's voice had the slight tinge of a Bostonian accent. I couldn't help myself. What the fuck is this? I yelled. Some kind of stupid joke? My niece is missing. She could be dead for all I know and you're playing games right now? It took a lot of self-control not to sock the janitor across the face. Instead, I just turned and started walking away. Detective, wait! He yelled to me in the puppet's voice. I stopped and turned back. How did you know I was a detective? I asked. Oh, I know lots of things, he said through the puppet. It was difficult listening to him because he refused to make eye contact, choosing instead to stare at the puppet, who was looking at me. I had to give him credit. I couldn't see his lips moving at all. For instance, I know you drove here from New Orleans. You stopped by the sheriff's station and the library. They were no help. And now you want answers to what happened to Vanessa. Alright, I said. I'll bite. How did you know all that? The janitor refused to break character, saying everything through the doll. It's in the details. The Beretta holstered under your jacket. The tactical boots, the haircut, not the least of all the police report sticking out of your back pocket. I know you're not working directly with the sheriff's department because you haven't shaved in at least a week. So that says private eye. And I know you hit up the library because the librarian is the only person that could have possibly known I was here. I know you're looking for Vanessa Riggin because, unlike some people, I keep up with the news. You said your niece went missing. Assuming neither of you adopted, there's only one missing local girl that shares any of your dominant features. Alright, I said. This guy wasn't terrible. Maybe had a few screws loose, but credit where it's due. He had the Sherlock shtick down pat. What about New Orleans? How did you know I drove all night? 2 reasons. First, you smell like you haven't showered in a couple days. And second, I stole your wallet and looked at the address on your ID. He extended his wooden puppet arm and sure enough, the little bastard was holding my wallet. And to be honest, I wasn't even mad. This little shit got the jump on me. And that's all it takes to earn my respect. I actually laughed. Alright, Roger, how does this work? I pay you to be my research consultant? Believe it or not, said the puppet, I'm not big on money. What I deal in is information and favors. I can tell you don't have any of the former, so I'll take the latter. 1 favor at the time of my choosing, and in return, I'll look up everything there is to find out about what happened to your niece. When I get something, I'll call you. I shrugged, Okay, fine. Shake on it. I'm not proud to say this, but I shook hands with the puppet. Then he gave me back my wallet. I finally got around to hitting up the gas station where Vanessa worked before her disappearance. And let me say, what a shithole. From the outside, it looked like it hadn't been cleaned in weeks. When I walked in, I could smell fresh paint and raw sewage. The man behind the register was smoking a cigarette and stacking pennies into a little pyramid, oblivious to my presence. It was right then that my tooth started hurting like hell, so I grabbed a box of BC Power and walked up to the register. "Hey," I said to the clerk. He was a young, lanky, blonde guy with blue eyes that reminded me of what a golden retriever would look like in human form. His name tag said Jerry. He looked up at me and smiled. "Hey," he said back, before returning his attention to the coin pyramid. "I want to buy this," I said, getting a little annoyed. "How much is it?" the guy asked. "I don't know. You're the one at the cash register. You tell me." He looked at the box, then at me. "What's it worth to you?" "Look, man, I just want to buy this. I'm not trying to play games here." Jerry scowled at the box and said, "Just keep it." "What?" "It's yours, on the house." I sighed and put a $5 bill on the counter before heading to the bathroom for tap water to wash it down. I must have been distracted by the idiocy of the clerk. I didn't even notice until I was already in the bathroom that there was someone else in there. I went straight for the sink and turned on the faucet. Then I heard it. Guitar music. I turned around to see a man standing next to the urinal wearing nothing but a cowboy hat, red boxers, and boots, playing a familiar tune on a wooden guitar slung over his shoulder. Ah, shit. I didn't know it was occupied. The man started to sing along to the tune he was playing.
There is a house in New Orleans.
Are you freaking kidding me?
They call around.
He turned, still playing and singing, and walked right out of the bathroom. The fuck? I took 2 BC powders and washed it down with water that tasted especially metallic before I went back to the lobby. The clerk lit another cigarette and the $5 bill was still on the counter. "What was that all about?" I asked. "What was what all about?" "That guitar guy in his boxers. That some kind of act or something?" Jerry looked around the store, then back to me. "Where?" "He was in the bathroom with me. The guy in a cowboy hat. Ringing any bells?" "Oh," he said. "That might have been the bathroom cowboy. Did he have a beard?" "No." "That does sound like the bathroom cowboy." "Alright, look. I'm tired of playing games. I want to ask you a few questions. Is that okay?" Jerry grinned. "I like questions." "There was a girl that used to work here, named Vanessa. Did you know her?" "Oh, I'm actually pretty new. You might want to talk to the other clerk, Jack." "Okay, when does Jack come in?" "He should be here in an hour or so. You want some jerky?" Jerry extended a half-eaten stick of jerky towards me. Before I could say, "Hell no," the phone on Jerry's desk started ringing. He answered with a, "Yellow." After a second, he looked at me and said, "Are you Eric Riggin?" "That's weird." "Yeah? It's for you." He handed me the receiver. "This is Eric."
Mr. Riggin, it's Officer Clyde. I've been trying to reach you. Figured when your phone kept going to voicemail, you must be in the part of town without reception.
"Is there a development?" I asked.
No. Look, I don't know how you know Roger, but next time you see him, tell him we're even.
"What do you mean?"
Roger is calling in his one favor. I know you've probably done interrogations before, right? I'm giving you 20 minutes with the suspect we have in custody. After that, you're done. And officially, this never happened. Come here before I change my mind.
"Okay, I'm on my way. What's his name?"
Middleton. Spencer Middleton.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of Finding Vanessa, and a big thank you to Insomnia Mnemonic for letting me read it, and a big thank you to Chaos X, the first $10 patron. If you want to support the channel, head over to Patreon. Anything $10 or above, you get a shout out in a video. Thank you.